For a while now, Tiara, I've been trying to figure out a way for us to branch out even further in our movie reviewing adventures, if you will, right? And it's been difficult to try and not reach out, but try and like incorporate films from certain parts of the world. Okay, parts of the world that we know Black people are, and that we want to include in these reviews because that's what we're about, right? But then it was recently announced, about 25 years it's been since the release of City of God. It's become a huge cult classic, and it's like the magnum opus, if you will, of Brazilian films. It's highly regarded, and it was recently announced that there's going to be a new series that's going to be released on Max coming August 25th. And I thought, what better way to get into other parts of the world, to finally make it to South America with our reviews, than to go back in time and revisit this huge legacy of a film. What people will be surprised to know, or maybe they won't if you've been watching us for a while, you won't be surprised about this, and that is that Tiara somehow missed the
It really be your own people. It really do. Go ahead.
Just somehow missed the peak of everything, right? But I am glad that this is the case, because we're getting two different perspectives here as we go and visit this film. This film, and also the sequel that came later, City of Men. We'll just kind of be touching on both of them and discussing the legacy of the film. But I say all that to say this. For me, going back and revisiting this, I wanted to know if it still held up. At the time that it came out, it became very critically acclaimed. You could not go somewhere, in my case, the bootleg man, and not, come across this film. And even when we were going in and we were deciding if we were going to do this or not, I know that you were saying, I always see this movie poster all the time, but you had never saw the film. I don't know why, for the life of me, with that movie poster, that they chose that image from.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I can't wait to get
from
into
the entirety of the movie, but it's become an iconic, image. So when people see it, they kind of recognize it, which you did,
Yep.
But as we dive into this, I want to know what you felt going into it, since it was all new for you. This is the first time experience. A lot of people hold this up as they put this movie in their top 10 easily, of all times. This movie has appeared on multiple lists of highly acclaimed films, top 100s, top 20s, you name it. This film has been dropped in there since its release in 2002. But what did you know going into it, other than what I kind of just pushed you into? And then also, how did you feel going into it?
I knew absolutely nothing about this going into it. You mentioned.
And they're not surprised.
No, whatever. Again, if you're on people for real, whatever. I knew nothing about this, so I often enjoy when you make me watch things that I never seen before and that I probably wouldn't watch otherwise. But like you mentioned, the movie poster for this was pretty iconic, and I've seen it 1,000 times. You mentioned the bootleg man. I've probably seen it there. I don't know if y'all remember Redbox, or if y'all had that in your state or country or wherever you are. We had Redbox, where you can go and rent a movie, and it would always be at Redbox, and it was always an option. And I always would skip over it because, funny enough, the movie poster didn't intrigue me. And now that I've seen both movies, I'm with you, T. I'm like, what made them choose that still for the movie poster?
Yeah.
And of course, when that scene happened, I was like, oh, this is it. This is the moment. And it's such a a small part of the story, it's very strange that they chose that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so for I always often wonder that too. For the film itself, though, that particular scene, since we're talking about the poster, I'll stay there for a second. But that particular scene is so well done. It's so well shot. And that particular shot is so freaking beautiful. Like that whole, like, that Brazilian beach, like, energy, like, they pick it up so well. So
Gorgeous.
I can see for the visual aspect, like, yes, let's use this. But the film is so big and it covers so much in its story that I don't know why they ever landed on that. I don't know. So that's that. So with the new series that's coming out, which is City of God, The Fight Rages On is what it translates to. We actually get to see now these pronunciations, this is all Portuguese. This is Brazil. So some things, the way they're spelled is not how they would be said. But we do see Alexandre Rodrigues, if you will, who played Buscape, a.k.a. Rocket. He's going to be reprising his role as Rocket in this new series, where City of Men came in and gave us a more intimate story of two characters existing in that same world. This new series seems to be a follow-up directly to the first film, City of God. So that I'm excited about. And we also get to see a lot of other characters come in and also being played by the same people. So I did see in the trailer that Bernice is coming back as well.
All right, Bernice.
So you'll see a lot of like familiar faces and characters. And that I'm just excited about overall. So that being said, I just want to get into the overall story. So we'll start with City of God, respectfully. This of the two films, City of God, of course, is the behemoth. It's like I said, the pinnacle. It's a huge deal as far as Brazilian films go. It's
that girl.
It's that guy. It's just a really good film. It received multiple like Oscar nominations and all these things, collected awards from all around the world and did well at film festivals, all these things. And I really would just want to speak to like the legacy of the film as well as like some of the performances, right?
Yeah.
Number one, I know for me, I'm just going to speak for myself here. I know for me, when it comes to viewing foreign films, I prefer to hear the native language, and I'm okay with like reading the text, right? I'm okay with the subtitles. I always wondered though if one day I will end up like being cockeyed a little bit because, when you watch a movie with subtitles, you kind of. And if I could just get one eye to do that and the other, then I'm good, right? But I've seen this movie so many times that I kind of know. But I hadn't seen it maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 9 years since we decided to watch this. So it was like revisiting something that brought me a lot of really good memories. So the story itself takes on a lot of socio-political issues, some that still resonate today. As much as the movie itself holds up now, the elements and the things that are discussed in the movie still happen all the time. There are still young children growing up in the favelas, which you could say another word would be like slums or shantytown, right? There's a lot of kids still growing up in these environments, where drugs are a big problem, violence is a big problem, police brutality, all the things that we can relate to. You see, this is not something that is just exclusive to, what Black people deal with in, the ghettos of Sao Paulo, right? it's just something that we all can relate to. And I think that's really part of what made it such a big like international phenomenon, other than the way it was shot. Okay, so we'll start to get into some of the story here. So the movie opens up. There's a chase scene with the chicken, right? Yeah. Iconic scene. But what I think that scene does successfully is it immediately like submerges you into the world that we're meant to be in a very unique way, right? And the idea or the thought to start there and then branch off and tell all the stories and then come back to that point, this nonlinear storytelling choice.
Yeah.
It was just brilliant. But what you'll see, because we're doing this in light of the new series that's coming, right? So what you'll see is that they revisited this iconic shot of Buscape, Rocket, being in the middle of the street. He's in between the police and the gang with Lil Z, right? Lil Z, Lil Dice, whatever you want to call him. He's in the middle of the street, and he's going to go and pick up the chick. He has his camera, and there's that shot that just spins around as he's looking between. They actually bring that particular. It's so. Oh, Jesus, I'm such a nerd. They bring that shot back in the trailer for the new series, and it kind of it's a really cool tie-in to be like, we're taking you back to this iconic moment. But when the movie started, when it opened up, before we started to branch off into the other stories, how did you feel? Did you feel like you were in the thick of it? Were you immediately like intrigued, or what?
I was, because again, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't look up the synopsis or anything. And again, the movie poster gives me nothing. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know that we were starting with kids. I didn't know that kids had played such a huge part in this story. I didn't know that we were starting in the 60s. I didn't know any of that. So to just kind of be thrust into it, I was like, all right, okay, cool. And then, subtitles, it takes me a minute to get into it. But what I like about this is that the story is so good that I forgot that there were subtitles. Yeah. And the cinematography, which you already mentioned, is so beautiful to where it's like, dang, like I'm into this. Like few minutes in, I'm in. Like, so forget the fact that the subtitles and I'm like, oh, I gotta sit here and read this. Nah, I was in early. They had me.
You can always, let me tell you something. If you ever want to, if you're vetting someone, right? You're on a date and you're trying to figure something out, and you want to just test, their literacy. Go and see a movie, sure, but go and see something that they got to read, and then ask them afterwards. Say, what did you think about that? And you'll see if they were able to keep up or not. You'll know what you're dealing with.
Yo.
But anyhow, so we start to branch off and we get into some of the separate stories, as well as a very impressive flashback, if you will. But one of the things I want to point out to you, because the film was so iconic for so many different reasons, and one of those was the fact that the director, when they were going to go and do the film, the director wanted it to be as authentic as possible. He wanted it to be as real as he could make it, right? And part of that was going into, now they didn't actually film in the real City of God, rather a favela outside of that. And that was because, they felt like it would be too dangerous to film in the actual location or whatever, but still a lot of, distinct similarities in the two. But what they did is they went in and they recruited a bunch of, real people to act in this film. And so one of the best performances in the film is our main villain, okay? Our main villain in the present time of the film. And that is played by now, again, Portuguese, so I could be getting this wrong. Leandro Firmino, who plays Lil Z, And we see him at the beginning. He's, he's the leader of this gang. He's running things. He's running things all up and through the city of God, okay?
That is an understatement.
But the actual actor who played him as an adult really had no intention of ever being an actor at all, right?
Really?
He was actually from, him and a lot of the other kids in the film were actually from the city of God itself. But he just happened to go along to the auditions with a friend. He was just hanging out, right? So
And
was
it's
his
interesting you
first
say
movie.
that. So usually when that happens, the person's like a side character, right? Like I'm gonna use this example because it's fresh. So I recently watched Training Day,
Okay.
and I watched Training Day because I remember listening to Club Shay Shay a couple months ago, and Terry Crews was on there, and he was talking about the scene where he was in Training Day, and he was just like, I just happened to be on set. I was a bodyguard. I was around. They needed an extra. I didn't have any speaking lines, but I got to be in a scene with Denzel. So I hadn't seen Training Day since I listened to him talking about that on Club Shay Shay. So I watched Training Day probably like a week ago. And I was like, dang, like that's really iconic that like this is his first film, but he really wasn't going out to be a part of the film, right? So it's a
Yeah.
huge deal. So like now you're telling me that this person was just like going as a tag along and ended up in this iconic film. And usually when that happens, the person's just like a side character, like Terry Crews in Training Day. You see it or you don't kind of deal. But this is like a main character,
Definitely.
the villain. That is huge.
Definitely. And a lot of these characters were based on real life people. And it's interesting to watch it play out. But what I will say is that as we travel in time and we go back to the 60s and we start to get the backstory of all these characters, as great as Leandro was, his younger self was played by Douglas Silva.
Baby.
Douglas Silva is arguably the standout performer in the entire first movie. Rightfully so. And there was just so much like realness that was like, pressed into this film. Because again, you're getting a lot of people who are not trained actors. They literally grabbed like 200 people, threw them in like a little boot camp, if you will, and taught them, how they would go about shooting a scene if they were in a gang, this kind of thing. And they went and did the thing, right? So you're getting real responses and performances. I read somewhere that so we're back in time and there's a scene where Goose is his translated name, but the actor, let me see if I can find this real quick, is Renato de Souza. And he sees the little kid. He sees Lil Zay as a kid, and this is after the motel scene, okay? And he plans on leaving because things are getting too crazy. He plans on leaving the city of God. And he runs up on him. He sees that he has money. So there's that scene where he like slaps him, and then the other little kid starts laughing or whatever.
Yeah.
What you don't know is that for about 15 days of shooting, they told Renato to pretty much go on just like bully the little kid constantly, okay? To the point that when this scene is shot and he slaps him, you're getting a real reaction because now the kid is like, I'm done with this. I ain't doing this, right?
So it was like, Will Smith when he slapped Chris Rock.
Yeah,
he was ready.
Oh God,
he was sick of it. He was sick of it. I'm about to slap him for real.
But knowing that when you go back and watch the scene and you're seeing like these reactions, right? And you kind of see like he feels like he's gonna cry or whatever, right? All this thing, it's real stuff because they're setting up things in order to do this, right?
So to clarify though, so are you saying that Douglas Silva was not a child actor, or was he a child actor originally?
No, he was not.
He wasn't either. Oh
no,
wow,
he was not. A lot of the performances were people who were virtually unknown, and that is again one of the things that just makes the film really iconic.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite scenes is the one that you get where Caballera. Let me use the English name actually. Where this is in the past, by the way, the 60s.
Yeah.
So the Tinder trio, which is Shaggy, Clipper, and Goose. Okay, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
scene where Caballera Shaggy ends up getting close to Bernice, Roberta Rodrigues, who actually went on to act more in like TV and things like this as well.
Mm-hmm.
But their particular connection. So when he sees her, when they're in the house and she's like just washing dishes, all the build up for their whole entire like romance.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like movie magic. Like I said, the poster was our main character, going after this girl Angelica that he just thought was like a heartthrob, and he just wanted to be with her. She was so hot, right?
Crush. But
But the best love story in the film, as far as two characters, to me, are these two.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a scene where they plan to leave. She gives him an ultimatum. She's like, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Either you coming with me or I'm leaving without you, right? And then they decide to leave together. What they do is they hold up a guy in a car, right?
Yes.
The car stalls.
Very, very Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah,
Yes.
very Bonnie and Clyde. This is why it made it so. It was so. It just has so much depth to this scene. But they stop a guy in a car, okay, in hopes of just getting in. He's gonna drive them out of town, right?
Yep.
The car stalls, and at this point, the police, who are also crooked as all get out, right?
Yeah.
They spot him and they mean to go after him to kill him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets out, and at this point you're so invested in the characters, you're so into the movie because this is so far in. When he gets out, he's pushing that car, and they are just making their way to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that buildup that you get is just, oh my gosh. What I love about that scene, number one, of course, the story itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I love about that scene is you're in the slums and you're shooting this, and there's a shot that's supposed to be within the car, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the camera's just like shaking as if the car is moving, and you see him from a distance just like running, and he's like, he's pretty much defeated at that point.
Yeah.
And they shoot him again. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But scenes like that stick out to me so much that when I revisit, I think I appreciated it subconsciously, when I was young, and shouldn't even been watching this, but I was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as I'm older, I'm just like, this is so good. But what did you think about just the way that they were able to capture like certain emotions, just like that scene I just described?
No, I think it was really dope because it gave so much depth to the characters, because you can just look at this as like a bunch of boys from the hood who are bad and robbing and shooting and stealing and doing all these things. But it really, the way that they had these like side storylines, like showing Shaggy and Bernice falling in love and then agreeing to leave together, like stuff like that. It really like, it added more to the characters and made you like root for them as opposed to being like annoyed with them. So I really appreciated that. And in that scene, I thought it was interesting the way that Bernice, she started to cry a little bit, but she didn't like break down.
Right.
Like she held that together. And I thought that was really interesting because they could have went a different direction. They could have had her like, screaming and falling out on the floor and being like very dramatic. It wasn't that. It was very much like she knew the type of man she was dealing with. She knew that this was always a possibility. And she also knew that she needed to move forward. And so I don't know. I felt like I felt that in that small moment of her just like being in the car and being like having her moment, but like knowing she got to move on. So yeah. Powerful scene, yeah.
Just very powerful scene. One of my favorites overall. And then there are a few other scenes that stand out to me. But one thing I want to point out too is that for some reason, and this isn't supposed to, I don't think it's supposed to be the case, but for some reason, I found myself wanting to be in these spaces a lot of the time, even though it's supposed to be so dangerous and so crazy. So we move further along into the present time, which is like late 80s or whatever. And that's where we get a scene where Lil Z, they're at a party, right? And the party is for Benny's going away. Benny decides that he's leaving the city of God, which...
And this was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
Which
was a lot, the overall storytelling. Because just like when Lil Z was a kid, he stopped Goose from leaving and shot him down. Also, the way that they went about revealing just how bad off Lil Z was as a kid is just, the reveal was crazy. When they finally revealed him shooting the people down at the motel, for example.
Yo, I was like,
yes. And you can see what, like, why this movie just was like so well received by so many audiences internationally, because you don't even see movies being made to that degree now. You know what I mean? Like thought out in that way, because the reveal was just like so perfectly placed that you didn't even, and you could be honest with me, you didn't, you know how you could sit back and you could be like, I could figure this out. I didn't
see that coming at all. At all. And where they placed it, I thought was really interesting, because they could have showed that before when we were still in the 60s, but the choice to show that later on as they were adults, that was brilliant.
So when we're at this party or whatever, it's for Benny's going away, and like I said, it's almost poetic. Just like he stopped Goose from leaving the city of God, Benny also got stopped from leaving the city of God. The only difference is that it wasn't from who it should have been from, but that's, neither here nor there. One thing that I like is that this was the one scene that gave some humanity to our main villain. And they did it in such a subtle way that I thought was brilliant. And that was him, trying to see if he can dance with a girl, right? And he didn't have the courage to do it. He wasn't set up that way. He had been so entrenched with the street life and running this gang and his rise to power and being so ruthless that he had no ability to just come down from that and have a good time. So when the girl rejects him, the girl turns out to be who they refer to in the American version as Knockout Ned. Happened to be his girl. And he decides that since the girl rejected him, he's going to humiliate her guy, right? And then that scene sort of builds. The visuals for that scene were perfect. When the DJ cues up the next song and the lights start going. Perfect.
The flicker, the strobe light. Oh, perfect.
Everything about that scene was just well timed and well placed. And again, when you consider the fact that these are untrained actors,
insane.
These are people who this is their first time on camera, people who had no desire to do this stuff. When you consider that fact, it's just that much more brilliant.
Yeah, but you saying this now is blowing my mind. I had no idea. This is because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, yo, they are acting behinds off. They are killing it. That's what I'm thinking the whole time. And now you're telling me that these are not even trained actors. These are people who just pulled up.
Not at the time they weren't. Nowadays it's a bit different. But But that was another scene that I enjoyed a whole lot. Overall, I would say this about for City of Gods is that it definitely, every bit of praise the film got over the years, and now to the point that it's become a cult classic, and it's something that you can go and watch, and it still holds up today. It's still as powerful as it was when it came out. All of that, to me, is well placed. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, the only downside, the only issue for me is that they didn't win the big awards that they should have won, in my opinion, that year.
So why is that? Because I did do some Googles afterwards and I did see that. So why do you think that
You're
is?
talking about the Academy Award nominations, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's still and especially at the time, it's still an international film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the things that it did win was already monumental for that aspect. But then you also have to consider that the Academy is, an American-based thing,
True.
to the point that they, on the posters, for example, if you could look back in the day, on the posters and promotional material, they had like the gang lined up holding their guns as a still. But on the American poster, they're all holding handguns. Like, and when I say handguns, I don't mean handguns. I mean their hands as guns, a la Charlie's Angels.
Really?
Yeah. So, there was some sensitivity to that fact, but also think about really what the film is pointing out itself. Actual residents of the City of God back in the day were not pleased with the depiction of this film.
Right, I saw
there
that,
were some Brazilians who were not like happy about it because it became a huge international success. So there's several sides, to the thing and the way it was received that I think hindered it from really getting what it deserved, because acknowledging it or saying yes, it wins in that way kind of okays some of the things that natives would have been, having an issue with, if that makes sense.
I got you. It's more like it's the same thing with like Black Americans. We have certain programming that is now international.
Yeah.
And we may say, oh, this is ratchet. Like, oh my God, why are y'all showing this? Because it puts us in a bad light and makes it look like all of us are this or that. And, so I get that.
Yeah, yeah.
I do.
And it's that kind of notion. So I don't know if the Academy was trying to stay away from that, but to me, I could see how one thing would, while it looks great for the film itself, may not be the same for others. So before we get into City of Men, I'll say this, and that is, while this series seems to, this new series that was announced for Max seems to do a callback to City of God and re-submerge us into this world. The truth of the matter is, for people who are in the know, the success from the City of God itself, just that movie alone, has always been constant since then, right? And so City of Men actually started out as a series after the first film, a TV series, right?
Okay.
And it had like I want to say like 4 seasons or something like that. And then the film came in like 2007. So there's stories all throughout it. So when you get into City of Men as a standalone sequel, what you'll notice is that in the movie, there's like, some flashbacks and things that happen and stuff like that, it's not necessary that you see the series before this sequel. But if you had seen it in between the two films, the flashbacks and so on would make more sense, because for City of Men, we follow different characters. You may get confused when you're watching it because you're like, wait a minute. Our main character looks like the kid from City of God. And
Listen.
It is.
Listen, I had to look twice because I was
wait a minute.
like, no, I've seen this face before.
It was Douglas Silva all over again, because he's definitely got a unique look.
Hilarious.
He looks like him.
Hilarious.
And so he's playing Ace, and then was Darlan Cunha, that's the actor. And this movie more so, the pace is completely different, let me say.
Yes.
So while City of God is very dark, it takes on huge issues for social class, crime, racism, all the things that happen in that world. The sequel, City of Men, takes place, and it focuses more so on young men who are coming of age in the same world that City of God has laid out, right?
Yep.
And so for that reason, it feels like a completely different film. However, it still is executed greatly. Still, we get the same director on board who cares about what is being told in this, universe that he's now created, right? And so for me, this is something that a lot of people overlook because, like I said, the City of God became such a huge phenomenon that a lot of people, when you say, there's a sequel, right? They'll be like, what? Really? And this is, you could do this nowadays where people know about the first film, have seen it several times over, and still have never realized that they made a follow-up to the film,
Yeah.
And so I feel, and you can let me know what you thought, I feel like you can watch City of Men out of sequence and still enjoy it as an individual story, not even knowing that it comes from City of God,
Absolutely.
Do you think so?
Yeah, it could be a standalone thing. Did not necessarily have so many tie-ins to where you feel like you're missing something by not seeing the first one. So yeah, I totally different story, but I will say it still had those elements of the first one, and it had enough to where like I'm a fan of the first one, then I'm obviously gonna like the second one because there's so many elements that are similar, and I guess that's a shout out to the director.
Yeah. And then so this film, it's more so, whereas, like I said, the other thing had focused on just the whole world, right? This focused on just individual characters. And in my mind, and I could be wrong, you let me know, I feel like you would enjoy City of Men a bit more like I said, as a standalone film, because it is more so about like the relationships and, some of the softer things, some slight humors here and there, and then the world is happening around it, right? That's affecting it. So in my mind, I think someone like Tiera, someone with your taste would like City of Men more by default, had you never seen City of God, of course, right?
That's what I was going to say. True? It's hard to say now because now I've seen City of God. I will say though, what stood out to me immediately was the difference in tone. It wasn't as dark. It wasn't as heavy. But I don't know if I would think that if I hadn't just watched City of God.
You would be like, this is dark.
Like, what is dark? What is heavy? It's a lot. It's a lot going on. So maybe I wouldn't have thought that. I don't know. We'll never know now.
Right. But I do think that it holds its own in the space that was created. Another good thing to note is that after that film was released, the second film, the second feature film, the series continued to the point that our characters end up having sons of their own, and you kind of get to see, the generational thing happening. But I think I think that only lasted maybe like 2 or 3 seasons after that, because it would have just ended in like 2017, 2018.
Oh, okay.
So when you actually look up the City of Men series, the run would be from right after the first film, so like 2003 to 2017, 2018. The dates I could be slightly
That's a
off.
long run.
But not consecutively, because like I said, it was 4 seasons of the first iteration of the City of Men and then the film. And then after the film, but that's still a long run for the characters.
That's a long run.
So there's an entire, if you wanted to get into the depths of the thing, there's an entire world that has been, created, an entire series that if you want to really do the digging and find all the things. And then also this is at the time that, middle 2000s where DVD collections and stuff were existing, right? So you could get the compilation of the actual seasons and stuff like this. So they exist out there. Before I give my overall rating for the 2 films and things like this, I do want to point out they're also right after. So I want to say it would have been like 2012. that there was a documentary that was also released. And this was City of God 10 years later is what you can find it under. And this particular documentary follows up with the actors, the directors, people who just were, involved in the film 10 years after its success. And some of the things that you get to see and follow up with are, who were able to branch out and have great success. Previously for City of God, we talked about the character Knockout Ned, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Knockout Ned is actually in real life a, legendary at this point Brazilian musician.
Okay.
He's even got a TED Talk, not a TED Talk, a Tiny Desk performance.
Shut up!
That came out many years ago, but I'm sure they re-released it and stuff like this. And that is Sue George, who I'm talking about, and he also was in a couple of other Hollywood films and things like this. And like I mentioned before, a lot of our actors went on to do other things, but in this documentary, you also get to see the flip side of that. One of the deepest and most emotional scenes in this universe is in the City of God, that first film. And that is, this is when you realize our villain is a villain to the core. That is when they go after the little kids and they corner the kids in the corner, okay? And there's a young boy, and in real life, he probably was maybe 6.
My God. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, how did they get this child to, 1, cry on cue like that, 2, get the Viola Davis snot running? How?
I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to tell you how.
Child. Please tell me.
So what they said was, so in the documentary that I mentioned, by the way, they end up following up with that kid as well, and how he eventually, he was very sought after that, you can imagine.
I bet, yeah.
But how he eventually wanted to get away from it, and he alludes to there being some, shady issues coming up in his lifetime, maybe some things that he could have gone to jail for, if you will, and he just didn't want to do the acting life anymore. But in that scene, what they coached him on, they found out that he was terrified of the dentist, getting a root canal kind of thing, right? And what they did was they worked with him, and when it came time for him to cry, was to think about getting, the dentist pulling your teeth.
Oh.
And that's how they got him to sob uncontrollably after getting shot in the foot.
Yo.
But that scene, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. That had me my heart. And again, like I said to you before we started filming, I was watching this. I'm like, did these kids get therapy? And he was one of the kids I was thinking about. Did he get therapy for that? Because I knew that there had to be something heavy that they had to tell him to pull out that emotion. And it sounds like he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't. A lot of people also talked about the kind of pay that they got for these roles. So, we're talking some people got 5,000, what do they call it? What is it in Brazil? Reis? I don't know how to say it. But let's say 5,000 is nowadays, because we're talking early 2000s, 5,000 is not even $200, something like that.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all.
Some people got that. Some of the actors in front more so, or leading actors, maybe got 10,000. And some of them even talk about the things that they, did with their money, right? And people don't realize that, again, these are untrained actors in this film. Number one, that makes it just so much more grand when you think about the performances we get out of it. But on the flip side of that is you get people who didn't ask for this kind of attention or fame, right? Yeah. They get it, and they're doing everything from going to Cannes, right? These are kids from the slums of Brazil never
Crazy.
thought they would be in France, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And there's a part where our main actor who plays Rocket, he talks about being offered 10,000, not dollars, okay? They came to him at some point and they offered him 10,000, and it was either you take 10,000 or we'll give you a percentage of the box office, if you will, right?
Você tem a oportunidade de pegar 10 mil agora, ou então ganhar a porcentagem da bilheteria no filme Cidade de Deus.
Okay.
Him being, young boy where he's from, was like, I need that 10,000. That's more money than I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not knowing how big this film would get, and not knowing the amount of money they would make internationally, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's stuff like that. And then some people just, were like, oh, yeah, I paid my rent. I think this was Sue George when they were asking him. I paid my rent and, I got some groceries and some necessities, and that was about it. Stuff like this. And when you consider that fact, the one thing that got to me the most was our main character, okay? Meaning his face is going to always be synonymous with this movie no matter what. That's why they're bringing him back for this new series, right?
Mm-hmm.
to solidify that. But our main character says that, he's going from traveling and doing this promotion, going from film festivals, paparazzi in his face, doing all this press and everything. But the reality is, he's like, these people do not know how I'm living.
Yeah.
That he goes back home, he's laying on the top bunk, and the raindrops are dropping on his face. After this movie has been out, okay? So you get that. The young lady who played Roberta, even though she went on to continue to act, not Roberta, I'm sorry, that's her name. They played Bernice. Even though she continued to act, that did not come straight away, So she talks about, going back, to the favelas, and, there being wars breaking out while she's, sitting there at the gate having a beer with her friends, That the reality behind the scenes of this is that people for a long time did not consider things as far as films that could come out of Brazil to have any foundation or any substance. And this film changed the trajectory of the film industry in Brazil, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they didn't even know the magnitude of what it would become. But I'm excited to see these people come back and do it again. So in essence, it's like the best thing that happened to some of them and also the worst thing that happened to some people, right?
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is the City of God is so phenomenal that it's kept a lot of people working for 25 years now. And that's a real blessing. You don't get that a lot of that out of just like an individual film. You just don't.
Usually no.
So I'll give my final thoughts here, and that is, if you've never seen City of God, and I'm sure Tiera can attest to this, it's highly recommended. If you love cinema, if you love film, if you love great storytelling, if you want to watch something that is just like perfect from like end to end, this is what I would recommend. This is one of the ones that I consider to be up there as well. And then when it comes to City of Men, the sequel, if you enjoy City of God and you get caught up in the world that's created and you don't want it to end, right? And you just want to, you know how you watch something and you sometimes wonder, I wonder what that person that was sitting at the table,
Yes.
and when they started shooting or when they stole that car and tore up the man's shop, I wonder what that person's doing.
Yeah.
City of Men kind of does that. It takes you deeper into the world, but it's more focused and it's more centralized, and it's, it's individual stories. All in all, I would say together, I'm going to do something new here that I've never done before.
All right.
So our rating system, right?
I do.
And for a while, it's been what it's been. What I decided to do is make an executive decision after much thought, is I wanted to give a rare prize out. So I decided, when people give out rare prizes, they say, oh, here's a golden something, right? So now we have a golden rating.
We do.
Oh, yeah. You won't believe it. You won't believe who it is.
I'm scared, actually.
I am going to rate this for the first time, and this is going to be a rare gift that I give to some things. I'm going to rate City of God along with City of Men just as a whole thing. A golden Denzel. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to come to this conclusion.
Okay.
But yes, this is something new for us. But yeah.
All right. Well, that's huge.
Yes.
Considering you are quite the critic. Everyone who watches this knows. So that means you really, really do love City of God and City of Men. That's dope.
Yeah. It's the bee's fucking knees, man.
The bee's knees is that girl.
Just for what they were able to do with virtually nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Taking unknowns and turning some of them into superstars. And the performances that they were able to get out of it, along with the storytelling aspect, along with the cinematography and the way things were shot. Like, everything was just so well done. Things being shot on location. Nowadays, movies feel so soulless because you're watching most stuff on a soundstage now, you know? And it's so rushed. And like, you don't get to, you don't get as gritty as you got when these things came out. That's the one thing I am fearful about with the new series is how modern technology and the success and legacy of the thing, having a bigger budget and stuff like this, how that does translate. I'm anticipating that. But overall, yeah, you just cannot be upset with what they were able to do with this film and how it still holds up today. But what about you? What do you rate this?
Well, I didn't know we had a Golden Denzel Award.
We do now.
I'm like,
what
could I have rated that? But that, we'll get back to that. This one, well, these two actually, I'm gonna give them the same rating. I enjoyed both of these. I watched them back to back, so not the same day, but 2 days in a row. And I enjoyed it. At no point was I bored. At no point was I like, I'm over this. I told you, first 5 minutes, I was in. I was like, all right, we got subtitles, we got Portuguese, but that's okay. I'm in because they got me. Beautifully shot. Very beautiful way to look at Brazil, a different way that we typically see Brazil and Rio de Janeiro and like how that's depicted. I think in one of the movies that was mentioned too, like this is different than what y'all see on a postcard or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But so I really enjoyed seeing that. I mean, beautiful, beautiful. The storytelling, A1. The acting, A1. I'm still sitting over here like my mind is blown that you're telling me that so many of these actors were untrained at the time and just kind of pulled up. I mean, wow. I liked seeing the variation of the way people looked. I think that is like, from what I can understand about Brazil, is that that's an accurate representation of like Brazil, that you have these different kinds of people. Sometimes in mainstream media, we see a certain type of person from Brazil, right? But in this, you're seeing variations, and I liked seeing that, especially like they were in the favela, and oftentimes in movies and shows, we'll just see Black people. But no, it was all kinds of people in the favela. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, as it is. We know that, but when you see it on TV or movies, it's always like, oh, it's just the Black people, So I appreciated that. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Great stories. I appreciate that they're 2 standalone stories as well. There are tie-ins, but they're both standalone. You can, if you really rock with one, you could only just watch that one. If you rock with the other one, you don't have to necessarily do them together. So I appreciate that. I am interested now to see what this new series is all about. I understand why you're excited about it. I
Exactly.
understand now why you were talking to me about it. I'm like, okay, cool. No, I get it now. All right, I understand. I get it. My only knock for this film is the movie poster. I don't know why y'all did that. I really do not know why y'all did that. And that is gonna stick with me forever. Because why? There were so many other shots, so many opportunities. But all in all, I enjoyed both of these movies. I'm so glad you made me watch them. So I'm gonna give them both an Angela Bassett.
Hey, 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 hey. So
Yes.
I say that to say this. This was something that we just decided to do as a result of the announcement of the new series.
Yep.
And this is our way of, again, including stories that are people that look like us, but from other parts of the globe. And I think that this is a great starting point for us to trek into South America and see what they got going on down there.
Okay. All right.
But this is the pinnacle. So it'll be interesting to see what we're able to discover, and now that we're starting to like dig in those areas
Okay.
as well. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the series. I'm excited for what this will bring, and I'm just glad that you are getting exposed via my recommendations.
Me too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, if you've been watching for this long, we want to thank you for watching this sort of exclusive visit or revisit for me, not Tiara, to such a iconic cult film. You can always find me on Instagram at TeaRon World, on TikTok at TeaRon with 2 underscores. You can also find Ubiquitous Blacks all over the social medias at Ubiquitous Blacks. If you have any recommendations, if you are privy to films from Brazil or other parts of South America that feature predominantly Black/African diaspora people, please send it to us. ubiquitousblacks@gmail.com, or you can leave your recommendations in the comments and let us know if we can find some interesting content that way. If you're listening to this as an audio medium, you can also send us fan mail. You can send us a text. You can let us know that way. Just go into the description of the episode and you'll see a link that will say send us a text, and that'll come directly to us. We will check it out. We'll review it and all that. And then I'll say this: if you want to support us on YouTube, there's a super thanks button. You can donate to us there. On the audio medium, in the description, there is a show support. You can support the show that way. Just follow the links. It's pretty self-explanatory. Or you can you can hit me up on Instagram and ask me for my Cash App. I'll send it to you. You know. But anything you do donate to the Ubiquitous Blacks show, the platform, will go into making the platform that much bigger and better. And we appreciate your watches, your views, all the things. Tiara, where can they find you?
Yes, you guys can find me on the socials at Tiera Takes. It's at TIERATAKES _ or on my YouTube channel, also Tiera Takes. Come by, say hello. I'm over there doing travel content. So stop by and see where I'm at in the world and maybe learn a few things about the places that I've been. And if all else fails, you can always find me on my website. It's tieratakes.com. And I'm just going to echo TeaRon as I always do. Y'all, we love suggestions and recommendations. So please send things our way. You can drop it in the comments or email it or send it, all the other ways to communicate. Heck, apparently you can send a text now, which is hilarious to me, but I love it. Do that too. And if it's in Portuguese, it's okay. I will turn on subtitles. I'm good. So go ahead and send the things our way.
We really need to get down there.
It's true. So if you want to send us, an invitation to come visit, sure, let us know.
The one thing I meant to say this. I meant to say this while we were talking about the thing, but the one thing is, I will always say this: anytime I've went and like explored Brazilian films or TV shows and stuff like this, Black people look so good. Why? Why we? See, we supposed to be in the sun. We supposed to be in the sun.
It's the sun.
Man.
Obviously, I was thinking that too when I was watching this. I was like, God, everybody's skin looks so beautiful. Everybody looks so gorgeous.
I've always, people, they say, "Oh, do you want to go to Carnival? Do you want to go to Carnival?" I want to go to the real one. I don't want. I've never been to a carnival because I one time was gonna go in the UK. It's not the same. I want my first one. I want it to be the real one.
Well, then let's go. Put on a list for next year. Let's go.
I think we should. I think we should do it.
I
think we should do it.
Let's do it.
So you heard it here first. If you could donate to us, so we can go to Brazil for the Real Carnival, then that would be greatly appreciated. So that's all I got for today. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Bye, y'all.